about all this. First things first, a mode is a scale. What makes a scale? A scale is basically a series of intervals. The spacing between each note makes what a scale is. That's what makes the difference between something like this or something like this. It's different, right? Because of the spacing and the notes. So I think, and I'd love to get the opinion on you guys and later on our guest. The way I see it is each mode is unique and individual. It's a unique and individual thing. Yes, it's true that a lot of those modes are extracted from the major scale, church modes, 7 of them, but there are other modes too. But I really think that if you see them as, Dorian is the second note of Ionian, therefore, when I need to play Dorian, I can go 2 frets below, play my Ionian, and it's going to sound like Dorian. Well, a lot of brain power, right? And when you play, you don't have time to do that. You really want to just get into it. So that's the first thing. See them as unique and individual scales. The second thing that I want to tell you is that if you bring every mode to a common major scale, well, really what that means is that you're bringing your understanding, your visualization of the fretboard to a single position, Ionian, the major scale. And when you do that, you tend to not be very musical because your music starts with a shape instead of starting with an idea that's inside of you, your ear. And although, sure, it's going to sound okay, millions of players do that and it sounds fine, I don't think you're going to be super fulfilled musically if the music you play is directed by the shape that you're playing in. We see that in the pentatonic. So many players are stuck in the pentatonic. Everything they play sounds the same because they kind of understand the pentatonic as a shape, and their fingers is doing the playing, and that should never. Well, it happens a lot, but if instead of having your fingers doing the music, you control your fingers to do the music, it's going to be way better. Okay, let's bring our guest. Are you ready, guest?
Yes.
Hello, Nick.
Oh, it cut my head off.
Nick, how do you keep making billions and billions of dollars playing music and affording all this gear behind you?
Do you know what the secret is, David?
No.
The modes.
Very nice. Nick Kelly, a very good friend. We've known each other for years and years, and we had some of those discussions with that. Mm-hmm. I have a question, Nick. Do you think me saying that I should see modes as unique and individual scales is flawed? And it's totally okay if you don't think like that.
No, there's two ways to see modes. One is in the context of a key, right? So as you mentioned, like you could see, oh, this mode comes from whatever major key. So like D Dorian comes from C or something like that. That's one way of seeing them. And then there's another way which sees the mode as kind of a key center itself. Mm-hmm. So, a good example of that is I always test students with this. I say, what key is this in? Okay, hold on. Right? That's pretty straightforward.
Yep.
Do you know what it is?
I'd say A something.
Yes, it's A major.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it goes A, D, E, A. Now, what happens if I go... What key is that in?
I'd say it's based on E. E seems super stable.
Yes. Well, there's two ways to see it. Some people put their hand up and say, it's in E. I say, well, no, it's not. It's not in E major. And some people say, okay, it's in A. Yes, kind of. It's in A, but the focus is on the E chord. So actually, it's not technically, if you want to be really specific, it's not technically in the key of A even. It's actually, with the emphasis laying on the E, it's an E mixolydian.
Mhm.
So there are songs, that will rotate around specific modes as being the key center. Now, some people might not think of it that way. They might just say, well, those three chords, A, D, and E, they're from the key of A major.
Mhm.
Correct. But modes to me are about emphasis. Where is the emphasis? And this is a good example, this progression here. I use the same three chords both times. The first time is A, D, E, and I rested on the A.
Mhm.
That brings our ear to the key of A.
Yeah.
But if I go E, D, A, land on the E, it kind of brings our ear to resting on the E.
Yep.
So the same three chords with a different emphasis gives us a total different feel. And that's what, to me, modes are about, emphasis.
Exactly. And the thing is, and then we're going to get some playing in, but a note by itself, it's just a sound. It really doesn't have any meaning. The meaning of a note will come from that note being placed in context of something else, whether that context is melodic or chordal, where you have this that is attracted to something else. Like maybe this could be attracted to this note. Okay, so this note gives you a feeling, whatever it is, but it's a particular feeling. That note has a meaning that is very different from this. Yet it's the same note, right? And this, same exact notes, but different feelings. I think that goes along with what you were saying, the emphasis, depending on what is attracting what you're playing, that will give that melodic line that you're playing meaning. And the meaning, we, instead of saying sad, happy, mysterious, we could, but we say Lydian, mixolydian, aeolian. That's kind of how I approach this. It's a feel-based thing.
Yeah. And like you just explained, David, like one note, like let's say, take an A, for example. Now an A, depending on what chord you put it on, could mean several different things. If we just imagine the A is the root of the chord, it could be A major, it could be A minor, it could be, it could be all kinds of chords, A7, A major 7, and so on and so forth. Anything with an A is the root. But it could also be other intervals too. So you could have, for example, imagine it's the second. You could have it over a G chord, and now it's acting as a second over a G chord, or even a G minor.
Yeah. Same note. Very different then.
Yeah, exactly. So there's so many, just one note could relate to chords in multiple different ways.
Yeah.
And when I listen to a backing track, it's really the chords of the backing track which suggests the mode. So a lot of guys get confused by this. They'll play a backing track, let's say an A minor, and they'll say, "Oh, I can play A Phrygian, I can play A Aeolian, I can play A Dorian at any minor scale." Not true. Unless the chord is one chord, the backing track, it's not true, because the other chords are going to steer your ear towards particular modes. And you're never going to have one set chord progression that's going to do all three of the minor modes, unless it's been written like that to do that. But most of the time, it's going to be specific.
So let's get practical for a little bit. And Nick, why don't you come up with a simple, maybe 3-chord progression, simple thing that is in, let's say, A Dorian.
Okay.
Can you think of something?
3 chords. Yeah, sure. Maybe, A minor, like D7. I'd probably do 2 chords, but
2 is fine. Yeah, that's great.
Something like that. It's A minor, actually A minor 7 to like a D. a D chord. I lost your audio, David, if you're talking.
Yeah, I'm sorry. There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so let's try something. That first chord was a D. Oh, I'm sorry, an A minor, right?
Yeah, I was actually playing A minor 7, but A minor would work just as well.
That's fine. Well, we can do A minor 7 right here.
Yeah.
The second chord you're playing.
Now, the second
What's the
chord,
fingering you were doing?
I was actually putting an A in the bass too.
Okay.
It's like this. It's fret 5 on the E, then I X out the A string, and then 7 7 7 on the D, G, and B.
Something like this.
Yes.
Okay. So now this is what I like to do mentally when there's a chord progression that doesn't make sense, and that really helps. So we have two chords. The first one was, oops, sorry. This was our first chord, A minor 7. And then I'm going to superimpose on top of it the second chord you were playing, which was this, right?
Yep.
This note stays the same. So now we have like not a chord, but two blended chords together.
Mm-hmm.
And you said that you were playing A on the bass on that second chord, which is an important thing. We're going to tell this software that A is the root.
Yep.
Okay, so everything is attracted to that A. It's very obvious because you're repeating this. And then we're going to notate intervals here. So if we look at these two superimposed chords, and the more chords we have, the more complete our scale is going to be. But if I take this and I kind of reorganize these numbers in order of appearance, we have a 1, there's no 2, we have a flat 3. So far we got 1, flat 3, we have a 4 here, a 5, a flat 7. Hey, that sounds familiar, right? This.
Yeah.
Minor pentatonic, which is always going, well, most of the time it's going to be the case, which is why minor pentatonic is so popular. It works in a lot of modes. But then we have that 6 here. And that 6, if we didn't have that, it would be a minor pentatonic, which is found in so many modes, and it really wouldn't be a modal chord progression. We could play, like you were saying earlier, natural minor, Dorian, Phrygian. It would all work if you just had that single chord.
Yes.
But that note that appears here, that 6, is very characteristic of Dorian, which is what makes this Dorian.
Definitely.
So the point, I guess, is if someone's dealing with a chord progression that they don't know what to play over, just do that work. I know it seems like maybe, I don't have time to do this. I don't want to do it. It really helps to visualize things, print out an empty fretboard and write down your chord progressions and see what it looks like. It will give you most likely most of the scale that you're playing with. And the more chords you have, the more complete that scale is going to be.
Yeah.
Unless you're dealing with modulation, but that'll be the topic of a follow-up one where you have a chord that doesn't match, but let's consider that it does. And that's really the key. So when I'm playing modal, what the goal, I think, when anyone is playing is to just come up with melodic ideas in your head and just play it. Not think of shapes or things like that. But in order to get there, it's nice to have some shapes. So here's I'm going to take you off for just a second, Nick. I'm going to share this thing here. Here's what I like to do. Let me show you something, everyone. I'm going to write down, and then we'll do some playing. I'm going to write down the most commonly used minor modes. So check this out. I'll start with Dorian. This is a mode that is called Dorian. Then we'll play it in a second. Okay, cool. This right here is the Dorian mode. Now, I'm going to write something else. And by the way, what do you see in there? You should see something. Look at the black notes. Minor pentatonic, right? So you find a minor pentatonic within Dorian. All right, now, I'm going to write down another commonly used minor mode, which is Aeolian. Okay, this is Aeolian. And what do you have in there? Same exact thing. You also have a minor pentatonic scale. Okay, interesting. Now, another mode that is not as popular, it's kind of exotic sounding a little bit, or whatever you want to call it. It just is not that popular, but it's Phrygian, still somewhat popular. This would be the Phrygian mode here. And again, you have that minor pentatonic scale hidden in there. Okay, let's get practical. We're going to play these, hear what these sound like. So I've got some backing tracks, and we'll start with maybe something in E Dorian. Okay, E Dorian, we know that we can play minor pentatonic, so usually I start with pentatonic. So here's something in E Dorian. Minor pentatonic's gonna work. Now if I want to add some color to that, I will add the Dorian notes. That's the sixth that Nick was talking about earlier. If I get lost, pentatonic. The second. Let's try another one of these. It's going to start exactly the same. I'm going to do something in E Aeolian this time. Okay, minor pentatonic. And then I can add those characteristic notes. So in other words, the Dorian and Aeolian are very close. They share quite a few notes. They share 6 notes. But they do share the minor pentatonic. Do the same thing with Phrygian, and then I'll bring back Nick for a question. So we're going to try Phrygian, which is not as common, but still kind of cool. Minor pentatonic will still work, right? But I'm going to add those characteristic notes of the Phrygian, which is the minor seconds. All that to say that if you want to play modal with some minor modes, start with the pentatonic and then add those characteristic notes. So all you need to do is learn those characteristic notes. Pop quiz, Nick.
Yes.
Dorian is a minor pentatonic, like we just saw, plus what?
A second and a sixth.
Yeah. And everybody watching, and that's because a pentatonic scale, which is a 5-note scale, has a 1, the root, that's the magnet. That's what attracts everything else. So if we're in E, E is that 1. And then we have a flat 3, a minor third, which makes it minor. That's the minor word of minor pentatonic comes from that third. That's the minor third. So 1, 3, we're missing something, and Nick just said it's that second, which is a major second. And then pentatonic has a 4, a 5, so we're just continuing in the line, and then a minor 7, a flat 7th, and Nick said that we're missing that 6th, and it's a major 6th. So that'll be Dorian. 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, 6, flat 7. But I don't have to memorize all of it. I just think minor pentatonic, because it's a minor mode, and I'm just adding the 2 and the 6. Can you, Nick, tell us a little bit about that minor and major part and those intervals. What does that mean? What's that about? Isn't a 6 a 6? A 2 a 2?
Yeah, no. So there's variations on them. So, like for example, we already said flat 3, right?
Yeah.
Now, if you think about it, a 3 in general, the fact that we had to say flat 3 means that it's different.
Yeah.
Because generally, if you think of the major scale, you've got a 3 or a major third, but usually you just say 3 if you're in major. But essentially, every mode is compared to the major scale. It just has different flats and sharps and things like that. So the first thing I recommend that people do, or not the first thing, but certainly one of the things I recommend people do, is to memorize the formula of the mode. So we already know major scales 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or most people realize.
Let's try this. Let's do it together.
Yeah.
So let's work in A, make things easier. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That'll be one possible way of playing this. And I'm going to tell this to show me the intervals. Why is it not showing me the intervals? Oh, because I need to say that this is the root. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's the major scale. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So all you need to do to make this Dorian is you need to know that Dorian has a flat 3.
Okay, so that means I take that 3
7.
and I move it down, right?
Yep, 1 fret. When we say flat 3, we just mean the 3 lowered 1 fret.
Okay, great.
And a flat 7.
Okay, and because this is kind of weird to play, and on the guitar you could play the same pitches on different strings, different frets, this flat 3 here, we also have it right here.
Yeah.
I'm going to move it there. But yeah, okay, great.
The way I remember flat 3 is either the 3rd lowered by 1 fret, or it's the 2nd raised by 1 fret.
Yep.
Which is what you just did. You've gone 1 fret higher than the 2nd.
That makes sense. Yeah. Okay. So that's cool. And we're think alike very much. I also use the major scale as my template, as my basis, because it's just numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And if we want to get more detailed, it's really root, major 2nd, major 3rd, perfect 4th, perfect 5th, major 6th, major 7th. But as long as we know that this is our template, and flat means 1 less, and sharp means 1 more, plus 1, we can kind of come up with any kind of mode we want there, right?
Absolutely. And most scales are 7 notes, mostly.
Yeah.
And
so what we had here was this for the Dorian. And we can see again here the start, these black notes of the pentatonic scale. We're just adding 2 notes there.
That's it.
Okay, so let's go back to our major scale. And what if let's not talk about any vocabulary, any names of these modes, but let's be creative. Oops, I forgot to move this 3rd here. Okay, let's just be creative. And maybe we'll ask the audience for some alterations. So, I mean, just give me, what do we do with a 2nd? Do we want to keep it there or move it? First one who answers will do that. And it is neck diagrams. That's the software we're using. And oh, you know what? I realized there's a delay with the chat and stuff, so I'm just going to do it.
Okay.
So it's random. Okay, we'll move this. Let's take that 2nd and move it, make it flat, for example. Okay, great. Let's keep the 3rd here. Let's take the 5 and raise it, and let's take the 6, keep it here, and let's take the 7 and flatten it. On purpose, I did this because it's weird. It's not something we see every day, but that's a very possible scale. We have 7 intervals. They all have their own assigned characteristics. So if I play this, We don't hear this every day, but why not?
Yeah.
Wait, yeah, oh, okay, that was your guitar. It sounded like an organ. I thought,
I was trying to make a chord that would reflect
good,
the
yeah.
scale. Yeah.
And that's great, because that's exactly what we're going to do. And I think it'll help people understand those modal chord progressions. If I take this formula and I tell the software to build that across all the fretboard, I'm going to do a scale generator. That's got a name, but I'm not sure what it is. But I'm going to use a custom map. So I've got a 1, flat 2, major 3, sharp 4, 5, 6, and flat 7. Okay.
I guess I would call it Lydian dominant flat 2.
Okay, so let's go. Oh, we're avoiding names, but we're gonna call it Nick's Special. Nick's Special.
Okay.
And we'll do this in A. So there we go. That's it. That's our scale all over the fretboard. And a good way to seeing the relationship with chords and modes or scales is to do this and then just randomly highlight some notes. So random. Is this a chord that is extracted from our mode? Absolutely, because it's extracted literally. So that means that we could play that scale over that chord. It's going to work. I don't know if it's going to work for us to play together, Nick, but let's try it.
Sure.
So try to improvise over this.
Let me just get a sound here.
Okay.
All right. Okay, go ahead.
No rhythm, just kind of loose. Let's try maybe. I'll try this one now. To see some stuff. All of that is possible, right? Because it's extracted from the scale. Mm-hmm. This example is maybe a little off, not off, but just not very typical, not very usual. But that's exactly how you can build some modal chord progressions if you're not familiar with the mode. And the cool thing, I think, is that it really encourages exploration of sounds and not think of, okay, Dorian, I'm gonna do a 2-5-1 in Dorian. So the 2 is this. It's just seeing the fretboard that way. I think Alan Holsworth was kind of seeing it that way. He sees the whole fretboard as
exactly. And the cool thing is to me, modes or scales in general are interesting because they're a great vehicle for composition. Like what you just played there, I heard that the A7 to the E flat 7, which it really was different inversion, but to me that's so cool. It's so interesting to hear. And you could do stuff like even just taking those 2 chords and moving them around. Let me try this now with a different sound. It's very distinctive. So distinctive and so different. And so you could take those 2 chords that David just showed, and you can make a melody around it from the scale, but we just created that chord progression from that scale. It's really interesting. So can I just loop real quick?
Yeah.
I'm just going to loop. So I'm just going to take that as a loop now. Oops, I have to unmute myself. Okay, here we go. You know, it's kind of cool. And that was just, you know, me taking those two chords that we extracted from the scale and then trying to come up with melodies over the top. And you think about a lot of songs, that's really how they're written a lot of the time, especially movie music. The composer will kind of take some chords from a progression. And, you know, there's stuff like, I don't want to get you copyrighted and infringed or anything, but can I mention a movie?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So like Star Wars, right? Is this Darth Vader's theme? Sorry. Now what is that? That's G minor, an E flat minor.
Yeah.
Now, what scale do you get G minor and E flat minor in? Not really one scale exactly, but actually you could. Actually, you do.
Well, you know, let's put it to the practice here.
G harmonic minor.
Yep.
So basically, you got flat 3.
So did you say E minor and G minor? Is that what you were doing?
No, G minor
and
E flat minor.
Oh, okay. So here's my G minor, and then here's my E flat minor. Right?
Hold on. E minor there. You put an E minor and an E flat minor.
Yeah, isn't that what? Oh, I'm sorry. What was
G minor? Yeah, G minor.
Oh, G minor. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna play it. I'm gonna do it right here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
G minor.
What am I doing wrong?
Well, you put E minor and G minor.
Yeah.
It's E minor. It's E flat minor and G minor.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
And then would you consider that E flat to be the magnet?
Yeah, it's interesting.
I mean, it kind of shifts, I think, but
it shifts depending on the scale. But if you put you could put them in different places. But I was playing G minor here, and G minor here, and the melody literally follows. That's your E flat minor.
Yeah.
And it's also got this note, which is the E flat, which it sometimes goes with the G minor too. But anyway, you know, those two chords exist actually within one scale.
Yeah, and most of the time, that's what you'll find. One will find. And when there's a real true modulation, typically what I found is like maybe 2 notes max will differ from each scales. There's not that many notes. There's always so many common notes to 2 different keys that happen. Well, let's do some playing. So this is, we kind of took like more of an extreme example, things that are not as conventional as things we'd hear on pop or things like that. But I think if we start with that, that's really, really helpful. What what I said about the minor pentatonic scale found in those minor modes is also true with the major ones. So if I take the common major ones being Ionian, really Mixolydian before Ionian, I'd say, depending on the music, but Ionian, Mixolydian, Lydian, they all share 5 notes, which is the major pentatonic scale. So let's hear what it sounds like. This is an E Mixolydian type of thing. So E major pentatonic would work. I can add those characteristic notes. So major pentatonic scale would be the common thing between this and, let's do an Ionian thing, E Ionian. You find the same major pentatonic scale. But it's those 2 additional notes that would make it really sound Ionian. And the thing is, the difference between these 2 backing tracks that sound very different, like Ionian gives you this feel. Oops, sorry. It's a unique feel that is different from the other one we had, which is also based on E, but different, right? Kind of, even, I mean, we're not talking just the rhythm, but the chord progression is more modern, more blues rocky, but still a little similar because of that major pentatonic scale. And then here's another one, still in E. It's the first one I was playing over. It's more E Lydian. So it's all about those characteristic notes that make what a mode is. So Nick, when you have a gig or a jam, open jam or what? Yeah, let's do open jam. You're going to an open jam, and they tell you, yeah, we're going to do this vamp and G Dorian. What do you think?
Well, usually people wouldn't say, they wouldn't specify. They just, either they just start playing, or they would, say, oh, we're going to play a groove in G minor.
Mm-hmm.
G minor is kind of vague. It could mean one thing or another. So the best thing to do is if your ears aren't trained to recognize the sounds of specific modes, the best thing to do is start with the pentatonic scale, like you mentioned before. And the pentatonic scale is kind of your basis, because all 3 of the minor chords all 3 of the minor modes have G minor pentatonic in them.
Mm-hmm.
So we got that. That's the basis. Now, what my ear then does is I calculate, for example, if I'm hearing the 5th, and then I hear the chords going, it tells me that I'm going to add this note instead of, if the chord progression went, I would add that note as opposed to that note. So the notes I'm referring to, by the way, are the 6th intervals.
Yep.
That is the difference between, and the 2 most common minor scales you're going to hear is either Aeolian which is the natural minor scale, or Dorian. So it's almost 80 to 90%, probably more of the time, going to be one of those two.
Yeah.
So just hearing that shift in the harmony, and the chords will give that away.
Yeah.
If I went G minor to like it, maybe to a C minor. I'm hearing that note here, which is, here's your minor pentatonic.
Yeah.
Which is going to be da 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 do do da 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 do. So the chord progression steers you one way or the other.
Yeah.
If I said I'm going to play Dorian, and the chord progression did what I just did, it's going to sound bad.
Yeah, a clash of notes, and I think that's the thing. So I totally get what you're saying, but I think in the shoes of someone who is new to modes, they're probably thinking, man, like that's way too cerebral. That's way too complicated words and the sixth and all that. But what I would say, and I'm not saying that you're doing it wrong, Nick. I'm just saying like that's how I do it too. But I think when we're actually playing, we can always backtrack and say, yeah, that's the sixth, and it's pretty much instant. But it's more of a reactive field, which is what you were saying. When you're starting in A, so you're just kind of reacting to what you're hearing, and your ear tells you, okay, that's a new information from this chord, and I know what that is because I've studied that before. And so I'm just going to have my finger adjust automatically to add this new information. But it's so much like a language. Like we can spell every word we're saying, but we're not saying them, spelling each of them as we're saying them. We could just backtrack. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
And actually, if I could just add to that, I certainly started with my ear. And I still use my ear, mostly my ear.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you can kind of hear that stuff happening. You might not be aware of what it is, but when the chord changes, it's introducing this extra note that wasn't in the first chord, and that's kind of steering you to play a certain note over it, to match that note, let's say. So if you hear the difference between these two chords, you go, oops, sorry.
Yeah.
You hear it. Yeah, you don't need to know what that is.
Yeah,
theoretically. You just hear it. So your ears should kind of recognize that and understand that it's not going.
Right.
It's not doing that. It's going. Let's say the backing track's doing that. So you're not gonna want to play that note when the chord's doing that. So, but if the chord progression went. Then you are going to do that. And that's the difference between Aeolian and Dorian, is that one note difference.
Yeah.
And it creates a whole different chord progression and a whole different mood.
Yeah. And I've been thinking a lot about that. The approach to guitar that I wish I would have had more growing up is, instead of looking at scales, positions, and all that, is focusing on how to react to what I'm hearing and translate that physically with my fingers. Because if I'm talking and I don't know, let's say that I want to do, for some weird reason, a super high pitch. I don't know why I would, but let's say that I do. I don't have to think about what's going on here when my throat is pulling or whatever it's doing. I just do it. And if I could, I wish I could go back to when I was learning guitar and think, okay, so I have this thing that Nick was doing. Na-da-bum. Okay, I hear it. Da-da-bum. That's going to correspond to these tendons and muscles moving. Da-da-ba. And I know exactly how much strength to put in without even looking. So more of a translating what you're hearing into the physical aspect of playing without necessarily even looking or visualizing a shape. You're just reacting like you're air guitaring, but it's perfect. If you were to actually place a guitar on your air guitar thing, it would work. Something like that. And that's kind of what we're all doing at some level. Sorry, I'm doing these different, pulling you in and out so that people don't. Engagement on YouTube is something I'm learning. Things happening on the screen.
Yeah.
But all that to say that if some people are watching here and are new to all this, it's not as hard as you think, and you don't have to learn it all at once. But whatever you're doing to try to get to that place, think about translating the thoughts on your fingers. I think that's the biggest thing, biggest takeaway.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, go ahead.
And Chris is in the room. Hey, Chris, have you met Chris? Yeah, of course, through Jam Play.
Yeah, I know Chris. Yeah, hey, Chris.
Hey, Chris. Chris, do you want to come in? If you do, just send me a text. I'll let you in to say hello, but you don't have to. Everyone, the backing tracks we were using here are all available for free. So there's a link below. You can grab them. And I wish we could jam together online, but it's always difficult to do that. Right. But I'm gonna try one of those modes that we have not talked about, which is Locrian. And then maybe we can touch on that just a little bit after. So here is welcome to the beautiful sound of the Locrian mode. Let me transport you. Sorry. Locrian is one of those that can sound beautiful and strange.
Yeah.
So why is Locrian so different?
You asking me?
Yeah.
Why?
From the strategies we talked about, the penta stuff and all that. Why do people avoid Locrian?
Because it has a flat 5. And basically all the pentatonics, the minor pentatonic scale, if you think about minor, let's say, it has a minor third, a fourth, a fifth, a flat 7. So the thing about Locrian is it doesn't have a fifth in it.
Yeah.
So therefore, it actually has a flat 5 instead of a 5. So you kind of lose that pentatonic grounding, if you will. So people are kind of uncomfortable when they don't have their pentatonic to kind of fall back onto, and that's one of the modes where you don't get that. So that flat 5 is interesting. But what I did is I learned the pentatonic and lowered the 5. So I went. And that, for me, that opened it up. Yeah. And it took a while for me to get used to that modified pentatonic scale shape. But I kind of rest on that as my grounding, just as you rest on the minor pentatonic as a grounding on the minor modes.
Yeah, that makes sense. This reminds me of something kind of separate separate, but I want to show you guys. Let's say that we're in a Dorian context. So I'll grab, let's see, I think I have a G Dorian thing here. All the backing tracks I'm using here are free you can grab them. But let me show you something. So back to neck diagram. For those of you who didn't catch that on the stream, this is the name of the software. I'm using version 2. The version 3 is this version 2 or 3? How many do they have, Nick?
Well, officially 2. So
okay.
I have version 2. Yeah.
Okay. Which is great. So let's say we're in G Dorian. So check this out. Here's my G Dorian scale. I think it's kind of fun to take some liberties and stretching things a little bit. So that's my regular Dorian scale. Within this, we have our minor pentatonic scale. Nothing new, right? And so if I play G minor pentatonic scale over this, G Dorian, that's the added second and sixth. Okay, nothing new. Now we know, because of all the music we listen to, it doesn't make sense musically in theory, but we know that we can always play blues, like replace the minor pentatonic scale with a blue, adding that blue note, right? It works. And typically that flat 5 is kind of used as a passing tone, right? But it sounds cool. It sounds bluesy and all that. What I kind of like to do is take this canvas, and to make it more clear, I'm going to just use some white notes here. Let's say that this is your typical minor blues scale. Well, there's something cool within the blues scale that happens here. This is a minor 7 flat 5 arpeggio, which is extracted from Locrian. That's why I was thinking about that. But so that's going to work too. Let me go a little further in the track when it actually starts. So there's that. I could use my half diminished arpeggio, flat minor 7 flat 5, but there's also this in Dorian, which is kind of cool. Let's now blend the blues, the minor blues pentatonic scale with the Dorian mode. So I'm adding those additional notes. So now we have like this 8-note scale. And then check this out. When I say check it out, I'm not saying you, Nick, necessarily, but anyone watching. Like this is a diminished arpeggio, and I could use that on there too. I think it sounds kind of cool. I kind of messed up. I like kind of like blending things together that kind of makes sense, because there's a thread that explains, okay, why did I get to that? Well, because of the blues scale blended in, and it just kind of adds some cool flavors like that. Do you have any similar ideas or stuff we could play with like that?
Sure. Well, I mean, if you just take the Dorian mode on its own, without the flat 5, you've got lots of stuff inside there, and I think you probably talked about this before, David, but you've got like multiple pentatonic scales hidden inside a scale. So, if you really look for them, but we won't go to pentatonics just yet. I'll just say like G minor's in there. Mm-hmm. You've got sorry, what key are we in? G minor, right?
G Dorian.
Yeah, so you got G minor. There's an A minor in there. There's a B flat major, C, D minor, E minor, F major, back to G minor. So what I was doing was going. So that was literally the arpeggios that I explained before, which is the B flat and the C arpeggios. But I'm going through different inversions, which exists within this position. So you got C, B flat, 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 and then so you got. And if I put a bit of distortion on here. Let me turn off this chorus. I'm playing off the trads. C, B flat, C, B flat. And then I could go to my pentatonic. So blend the two together. Pentatonic. And then trad. And so on and so forth. So, you know, it's a really cool way of breaking out of the mold a little bit. You look at what the intervals are here. The first chord is a flat 7, the 3, and the 5. Right?
Yep.
And then the next version of that same chord, but on the next string set, would be flat 3, 5, flat 7.
You're playing the flat 7 on the second string, or the?
Yeah, the flat 7 here on the B string, yeah. Okay. So it goes flat 7, 3, 5, and then flat 3, 5, flat 7. And then the final one will be 5, flat 7, flat 3. Yeah, so.
Okay. So you're playing that one, but you're alternating that with the 1, 4, 6.
Yes, 1, 4, 6. So you get 1, 4, 6, and then 4, 6, 1.
Were you playing the one on the B string too, or?
Yes. And then 6, 1. I guess you could go up here to 5 if you wanted to extend it. I was doing the 1 here, David, on the E string. Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of high up there. You might just miss that one out, but yeah, for this chord, you go. So if you put them both together, you go. And then back to B flat. And then B flat.
Yeah.
And then C.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's essentially what I was doing. I was toggling back and forth between B flat and C, but in different inversions, but all within that same scale shape.
Okay. Yep. That makes total sense. That's cool. And the cool thing is that from there, you could just keep exploring. If you have this whole thing in front of you, the whole diagram, you can come up with so many ideas, and they're all going to be valid because you have all the notes that are going to fit with whatever mode you're working on. So that's great. Nick, thank you so much for this. This is way more than I thought. I thought you'd just come in and say hello, but we all had a cool chat and lesson and ideas. And I'm gonna close this real quick. And people who are watching this live, this is gonna sound kind of rude, but I realized that live videos become regular videos. So I'm going to do my closing really quick, but I will hang out on the chat some more after that for questions. And Nick, thanks so much again. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thanks, David.
And for those of you who are watching the replay, you can grab all the backing tracks right here. Surprise. All right. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you next time.